As the state's leading property and casualty insurance trade association, the Wisconsin Insurance Alliance plays a crucial role in safeguarding Wisconsinites. Alliance members provide vital insurance coverage, ensuring financial protection for individuals, businesses, and communities across the state. In times of need, they act as a reliable resource, helping residents recover from unforeseen events. Ultimately, the Wisconsin Insurance Alliance and its members contribute to the resilience and well-being of Wisconsin families and businesses by offering essential protection and support. WisI video of the WisPolitics Madison Luncheon series at the Madison Club is made possible with sponsorship support from the Wisconsin Insurance Alliance.
Hey everybody. Hello everyone. Hello everyone. We're going to get started. Right now. Hi everybody, I'm Jeff Mayers from WisPolitics.com and WisBusiness.com. Welcome you to our State Affairs WisPolitics Luncheon for September 16th here at the Madison Club. Thank you all for attending. If you don't know, WisPolitics.com and WisBusiness.com are now part of the nonpartisan State Affairs Network that goes across the country in 14 states, so check it out at stateaffairs.com. I want to thank the Wisconsin Tech Council for being part of this program, and I want to recognize Tom Still, the longtime leader of the Tech Council, who is retiring later this year. Let's give him a round of applause. Tom's done a great job for that organization, for the tech industry writ large, and for the state to help boost jobs in the state in the tech arena. So thank you, Tom, for all that you have done. Maggie Brickerman will be taking over for Tom, and maybe we'll have her here at a later date. I want to go through the sponsors for this event series here at the Madison Club. WC Energy Group, Walmart, ARP Wisconsin, American Family Insurance, HB Strategies, Excel Energy, and the Wisconsin Insurance Alliance, which is a sponsor of the Wisconsin Eye video recording of this event. So thank you, Wisconsin Eye. Let's give them a round of applause. Yeah. We are going to have a program after I do all the introductions. Okay, so now let's go to the panel. We're here to talk about tariffs and how they affect Wisconsin. I'm not coming in this as a bash or boost tariffs. I think it's more of an explanatory thing, like how are this hallmark of the economic strategy of the Trump administration, how is that affecting Wisconsin jobs, Wisconsin livelihoods? And so to help us get at this, I want to introduce our panel. Starting here, Roberta Oldenburg. She's Director of Business Development for Science and Tech at Findorff Construction. Then we have Menzie Chinn. He's an economics professor at UW-Madison's Follette School of Public Affairs. He studies macroeconomic issues and policies. Then we have veteran farm broadcaster Pam Jahnke, a.k.a. the Farm Babe. All right, director at the Midwest Farm Report Network. And then Buckley Brinkman, executive director and CEO of the Wisconsin Center for Manufacturing and Productivity. So welcome, panel. Okay, let's just start with Buckley. I think a lot of this, the tariff stuff, seems to fall on manufacturing entities. So, I mean, the businesses you know and work with, how are tariffs affecting them?
Well, yeah. So, yes, please. Yeah, you're the professional.
I can't see this. Okay. We're off to a bad start already. All right, here we go. Try that one.
All right, there we go. So, it's an interesting question for manufacturers, just because we've seen a real split in how manufacturers are looking at tariffs. Anecdotally, since the beginning of the year, about half of the manufacturers have been for tariffs, and about half the manufacturers have been against the tariffs. The ones that have been for the tariffs have really been helped by them. So I was talking to a chemical company CEO, and he says, shoot, Buck, 85% of our imports or 85% of our inputs are domestic. Domestic customers are looking for domestic sources, so we're going gangbusters. So you've got that half of the group. The interesting side are in the folks that are in favor of tariffs, but they really hurt them. So when you get below the surface of that, there's a couple of schools there. One is that they just want to see China get theirs. I'm okay taking a little hit as long as China takes it in the shorts. And then there's another group that came out in our focus groups last week, which is we really think that this is going to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. And we're willing to stick with this for a longer period of time. So it's an interesting amalgamation. They're seeing costs increase. They've been able to rely on pushing imports forward, but now those inventories are going down, and they're seeing a lot of pressure on do we continue to hold on to a lot of these increases, or do we have to pass them through right away? So the jury's really out in a lot of areas with this.
Okay, we'll get back to reshoring here in a bit. So Pam, tell us what the farm industry is thinking on tariffs these days.
Pick a commodity.
Okay.
Pick a commodity.
So how about soybeans?
Sucks.
Okay. Can you elaborate?
Well, I am very much a time person. Shorter. Yeah, if you're a soybean grower, the outlook for you is grim. The bottom line is if China decides to continue to stay away from the United States, that is our number one market for U.S. soybeans. We don't domestically have enough ways to use soybeans at a commercial level right now to consume what we produce. Now, that being said, I just picked up a report on Friday that started to speculate we maybe won't have as large a crop, corn or soybeans, as was earlier projected. We'll wait and see on that. But China for soybeans is the big one that we have to have. Now, dairy is where I spend an awful lot of my time. I farm myself. I was a dairy kid. Wisconsin is in a unique niche because we've got such an established brand with our specialty cheeses. One of the people that I talked to said, what you have to realize is what Wisconsin produces, our cranberries, our ginseng, a lot of our specialty cheeses and other things, cannot be replicated in the world. So that gives us an edge, even if it's going to cost a little bit more for our buyers, per se, to bring that commodity in. But when you get into the straight corn, beans, we suffer. It's just the way that the world marketplace is. Now, on the flip side, as I said, I farm. I just got a text message from my sister, and fertilizer is kicking us in the rear right now. That is just, I don't care what type farmer you are, almost all of them consume some type of fertilizer. And my fertilizer bill on my farm is 30% up compared to last year, and I haven't finished buying. So that is a global struggle. It's not just the U.S., and it's not just about tariffs. It's about available natural resources and who's got them where. And we just can't do enough here domestically to serve that. So like I said, pick your poison. Which commodity do you want to talk about? Because every one of them's got a little different story. But, as you probably can imagine, to a large extent, production agriculture stays committed to, like you said, we'll take it. We'll figure it out, but don't let them get away with anything.
Okay, but if a deal with China would certainly help.
I mean for that commodity.
Yeah.
But again, we don't want to give it. We aren't going to sacrifice a lot of things for one commodity. We'll figure it out. That's why they build grain bins.
Okay. All right. So, Dr. Chinn, Dr. Chinn is responsible for the handouts on your tables, and we'll be having a test on this later on. So, please take note of them. No, you can't keep a good economist down. I tell Menzie, no, don't have to prepare any slides. Well, come on, that was a test, So, okay. Well, anyway, if you want to explain the slides now, or like the ones that you think are most applicable to what you're going to comment on, feel free to point those out. Okay. So anyway,
well, without further ado, I mean, I think slides are better than when I was an undergraduate and my professor would come in with notes that had been written 30 years ago. So,
yes.
Without further ado, the graphs, I think, first of all, the comments that have just been made, I think it points out this fact about tariffs. Tariffs have support that are particular because the benefits are going to be particular, whereas the costs are diffused amongst all of us. And so there's going to be a natural tendency to put in tariffs. Once you get started, the tariffs start, and they're going to benefit some firms, but then the firms that are hurt are going to say, wow, I need protection too because my input costs have gone up, so I need protection as well. And then when they get protection, then that's going to spread further. Okay, that's the dynamic that we've set into process, which in the post-war era was what we tried to undo. So we are regressing in that sense. Now, moving, that's my 2 bits.
So, Menzie, try to eat the mic. Hold that mic close.
Okay, try to eat the mic. Okay, so in terms of, the macroeconomics outlook for the U.S. and for Wisconsin, the first graph you see is the effective tariff rate, and it's jumped up from something like 2% to 9%. Okay, in very short order, you see it looks like this cliff in the inverse, just jumping up. And that's why this is an earth-shaking event. You may not feel it yet because the inventories haven't been run down, but that is the effective tariff rate. And that's not just Trump saying, what is the tariff rate? That is the revenue collected by the Treasury through customs divided by imports. So it's the actual effective tariff rate. That's jumped up tremendously. What's almost as important is uncertainty. That's the second graph on the first page. That's jumped up enormously under Trump administration. And so those two things combined, you can guess, higher input costs, a little bit of protection for some industries, and then tremendous uncertainty about what is the direction of policy with respect to trade in the future. Those things are going to lead to, I think, a slowdown. And if you flip the side to the other side of the page, you'll see exports and imports for Wisconsin. They're imperfect measures because some of the stuff is not recorded in the right place, but it's approximately right. And what you see is imports have gone way down, okay, partly because there was a surge just before the tariffs went up, but exports have also gone down, even without other countries imposing retaliation on us. So world trade is slowing. You may not know it, but it's going to show up in the statistics very soon when it's all collected up. And it's probably the case that as the world economy slows down, our exports are going to slow down from Wisconsin. Okay, so the tariffs are having an effect. If you are gambling on our trade deficit shrinking a lot because of the tariffs, I wouldn't bet on it too much. And so finally, the last picture in terms of outlook, employment. The official series is the blue line. It shows non-farm payroll employment in Wisconsin increasing, but you might have heard about this preliminary revision, which induced the Trump administration to say that the numbers have been faked. But anyways, it's data revision. Essentially, Wisconsin has had flat non-farm payroll employment since later part of 2024. So it probably wouldn't take too much to tip that into negative territory. I wouldn't call that a recession, but it's probably not good. So that is the outlook as of now for Wisconsin, if there's not a relief in terms of tariffs and in terms of uncertainty.
So do you think as the nation goes in terms of recession or near recession, so goes Wisconsin?
Yeah, if you look at if you look at the correlation between U.S. GDP and Wisconsin GDP, non-farm payroll employment, all these indices, you'd be hard-pressed to see at the business cycle frequency a distinction. So where the U.S. goes, we're going with them. And where U.S. manufacturing goes, I don't have that picture there, but we'll go.
Okay. All right. So there is a mic there to share. All right. So now to Roberta Oldenburg. She's Director of Business Development for Science and Tech at Findorff Construction here in Madison. So let's just talk about your industry and related industries. How are things going in terms of the tariffs?
Yeah. No, so just looking at from a contractor's lens, we are seeing tariffs, but we're seeing it's really a minimal impact right now, and that's due to early mitigation. We are seeing tariffs and increases in steel, aluminum, copper, components for mechanical systems, but really what we're doing is we're getting ahead of it. We had lessons learned in 2018 and 2019 when the tariffs first came in, and we're able to address that. We had increases with construction back then. COVID, when that hit, we had supply chain issues there and price increases. So we've really adapted a lot of different lessons learned so that we can continue to make sure that our projects are on budget and that we're communicating with our customers and clients to make sure the projects are going forward. So far, we haven't had any delays or cancellations of projects due to tariffs. We have seen some more issues regarding some of the uncertainty with some of the federal funding coming in for some of our projects. Also with some of the surges with data centers coming into Wisconsin or larger projects where we're a little concerned about labor shortage there. But really, our approach is really looking at early procurement, getting ahead of things, talking frequently with our trade partners, our suppliers, with organizations around the city and the state to make sure that we're on par with what's going on in the area. And then really exploring like cost mitigation. So really looking to make sure that if something, we have had projects where there's a cost that's going up on one of our projects for potentially countertops or whatnot, well, we're looking in and seeing are there other suppliers and being able to source it from the United States. Again, so far we've been in fairly good condition to make sure that we're staying on budget, but we are anticipating that they may have an impact later. But again, bringing us on early and making sure that we're having that constant communication to ensure that has really been beneficial for us for right now.
Okay, so we talked beforehand, and you told me a story about steel, about how you were, can you relate that to the audience in terms of how you were you were able to get steel domestically, but you had to place your order really early? I mean, can you explain that a little bit? Because you're working on a pretty lengthy timeline.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so we have some larger projects with a lot of steel, and steel is obviously a concern. We do have a lot of sources here in the United States, but then there are certain pieces that do come from overseas. And so with this particular project, I had talked to my project manager, and I asked, are we seeing any tariffs or any big issues? And she's like, we did have to place the order a year in advance. Part of it is because of the size of the beams, so they only roll certain shapes a couple times a year. So we're anticipating that, but being able to get that whole order in a year in advance is going to help us, one, avoid potential tariffs, but also really like the supply chain and making sure that it's here on time.
Okay, thanks. Okay, now I guess we've already talked about maybe potential losers in terms of soybean farmers maybe, but let's talk about in your sectors or from your knowledge, who are some winners out of this, some sectors or even a specific company you know to be a winner out of this, and who are losers in this so far? Anybody want to take, or I can call on you if it's really necessary. All right. Well,
the chemical company that I mentioned, I mean, if you're a company that has largely U.S. inputs, and you have a strong domestic market, you're a huge winner right now. If you're a small machine shop, a small manufacturer that has excess capacity, and you're able to produce for larger companies in the ecosystem, you're a big winner right now. If you're someone who is dependent on a large amount of foreign components, you're a loser. And I liked what Robbie said. Two things have really mitigated this right now. One is just the mitigation strategy, bringing components in early. There's a huge stockpile. You can see it in Menzie's numbers. And the other thing is just all the lessons we learned during COVID. We have much more resilient supply chains now than what we did before the pandemic. And so those lessons are really coming into play now.
Yeah, it also occurs to me that a bigger company can be a little more nimble, or it has a bigger market share and can maneuver a little bit. If you're a small company locked into a certain sector or a window there, this is, and your margins are small, it gets tough, right?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, one of the things that's harder for a smaller company to do is absorb these tariffs. And one of the things that the uncertainty is doing right now is causing many companies to just say, hey, I'm gonna wait and see when things settle out. And they don't seem to be settling out. So we're bound to see, as earnings reports come out and those larger companies are impacted by the tariffs coming through, there's going to be some pretty substantial price increases I'm thinking specifically in my mind with the auto industry right now, with the new model year coming out and the things that they've been through now and the losses that they've withstood. That has to come out the other end sometime.
Okay, Robbie, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to add in, just talking about during COVID times, we did bring a lot of pharmaceutical disposables, different things back to the United States because we realized that we couldn't make these pieces or we couldn't get them without it coming from China. So I think that we've definitely worked really hard as a country to bring some of this back. So it hopefully will help a little bit for more resilience there.
Yeah, I want to ask a question on reshoring as soon as I get through with the winners and losers. Go ahead. Anything on winners and losers, Menzie?
Well, I think that's been laid out.
Yeah, eat that mic.
Oh, once again, laid out pretty clearly. I mean, the winners are going to be the import competing industries that don't use a lot of imported inputs. And so, yes, they're the definitive winners because they're going to be able to raise prices, right, to match up the higher cost of imported steel, for instance. That's one thing. I don't know if it's a winners or losers sort of thing, but what has history taught us from the 2018 experience? For steel and aluminum tariffs, how much of the price was the cost was eventually passed on from tariffs to the final price? Well, by and large, almost all of it. Okay, in theory, you could have a tariff put on and the international price would be pushed down, and the domestic price could rise maybe just a little. That's in theory, but when we actually measure use data to measure what happened to the steel and aluminum tariffs, we as consumers, both businesses and people, bore almost entirely the burden. Now, in 2025, we're going up from 2% roughly tariffs, effective tariffs, to 9%. Whether that lesson carries through, we don't know. But what I do know is I don't think the firms can absorb forever in their profit margins the higher tariff costs. Eventually, a lot of it will come through to the consumer, and some of it maybe to international producers will have to lower their costs.
So does that mean 9% inflation?
Well, no, that's the interesting question. It pertains to what's going on right now. So when the price of inputs rise, in imported inputs in this case, it could be a one-shot increase, okay, because they only raised the tariff by 25% once. But whether it sets off a further spiral in inflation depends upon the credibility of the Federal Reserve. The credibility of the Federal Reserve is built in part on years and years of trying to keep inflation at around 2% on the PCE deflator. And it's been largely successful. But what is the current policy stance of this administration? It is, hey, let's get one of our employees on the Federal Reserve Board who we know, because he's got to come back to the CEA in the White House, is going to vote for lower interest rates. And if we can kick out one of the governors, then we can get another person on our side to lower interest rates. But lowering interest rates is printing money relative to what otherwise would have happened, and that's when you get the inflation. So it's an open question. It depends on the credibility of the Fed, which is under assault right now.
Okay. Anything to add, Pam?
Well, I'll kick in. You want to know winners and losers. I think, and now remember, agriculture, you got just a lot of individuals, a lot of individual business people. So winners and losers, I'll give you an example. We are not going to be able to afford new farm equipment. That's a reflection on commodity prices. It's also a reflection on escalated costs. But boy, is the used market hot. And they're not ashamed of that. That's fine and dandy by them. I take a look at some of the drivers domestically. I'm getting hit up all the time from the national corn growers, domestic use of things like ethanol. Push, push, push. Use it here. If the channels go closed as far as getting it out of the country, use it here. So I'm seeing agriculture doing those kinds of things. Use it here, create new markets, soybean-based jet fuel, soybean-based firefighting foam, ingenuity. That's what they are looking at, how to do it better with less. The technology, I was just telling a 21-year-old today that barely knows how to operate a microwave. I'm trying to explain to him about how many things that we are doing with technology would blow your mind. if you look at an average, most farms are being operated by a smartphone. When you go into a tractor combine, not mine, but if you sit in there, there's 3 screens and a joystick. So technology helps them find economy of scale. And so, like I said, the people I deal with are about get the job done, get it done efficiently, look at the cards you're dealt, plan ahead. Right now, everybody's already marketing for 2026 once you know what your input costs are. They just want to just shore me up. But on the same side, I also know that operating loan requests are up. I'm not saying foreclosures or anything like that. I'm just saying that they're asking for more money, but it costs more money. So, like I said, you want an example? Nobody's going to be buying much new equipment, but boy, the red-hot used equipment market thrives.
So one of the things that you said resonated with me, which is, we've got the hand dealt and we'll adjust to it. Manufacturers are saying the same thing, except they don't know what hand they've been dealt yet. They get dealt a hand and they say, no, wait, missed deal. We need to, and so that constant changing of the rules is really holding people back from taking action and really being able to make investment and be able to make decisions even 6 months down the road.
Well, that's another one of the stories that I love to share. Understand the pacing of agriculture. We make a decision today. We're sitting around the kitchen table. Shawnee, you know what I'm talking about. You make a decision today on the bull stud that you're going to breed that heifer to. And then you wait. And then you hope she has a heifer. And then you wait another 2 years before you decide or find out if that heifer made you look brilliant or stupid previously. Agriculture's got a different tempo. We have to commit. When we put that seed in the ground, we can't go out, tear it up, dig it up, and try it again. So that's why I said, as far as forward forecasting, farming's the biggest gamble we've got. But like I said, that's where I see them going. And more of our cooperatives, which are farmer-owned, are making decisions to build their own infrastructure. There's a fertilizer plant, there's a feed plant going up around southern Wisconsin, and it's all because those cooperatives decided to give the middle finger to people that they might have been purchased from elsewhere and take control and keep the dividend on the bottom line when it cash flows.
Okay, so we've heard references along the way to reshoring or trying to produce things domestically. And let me just ask this question. If you're looking at tariffs, it seems like one of the good things could be it's accelerating a reshoring trend. Is that true, or is that actually happening?
It's happening where it's easy.
Okay.
Where you can where somebody's already in place and already making a good that can substitute for what you're importing. Even if you pay a little premium, you can do that right now. But if you're seriously talking about having a transformational effect on manufacturing, number one, you have to be able to count on the tariffs being in place or being in one spot before you can make a long-term investment. And then the second thing is, this is not a 1 or 2 year kind of idea. This is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the making, and a commitment to bringing some of the infrastructure back that isn't here right now. So the tariffs can do that. They would be much more effective if they were more targeted and used as a scalpel rather than a cudgel, and that there was some specific idea of where we really want to be competitive, whether it's from an economic point of view or whether it's from a national security point of view. So there are a lot of different perspectives there, and they aren't coming together right now.
Go ahead, Robbie, if you want to.
I was just going to say, just because you want manufacturing to come back, it takes a while to build it too, right? So even if we try to fast track a project, it's still going to probably take between 18 months to 24 months if we're going really fast, and the owner is making the decisions right on the spot, and the architects are able to design it that quickly. So I think a lot of what we're seeing with the reshoring from COVID, that's 5 years now, right? And now we're seeing manufacturing facilities actually up and running and producing those products that was invested in. So again, bringing it back right now, we're probably not going to see the bigger effects for another 4 to 5 years, right?
Okay.
One thing I'll mention is that what's the cost of reshoring? I mean, for sure, the things that are low cost, where we already have some of the infrastructure or the facilities, that's going to be relatively easy. That's low-hanging fruit. But I once saw a picture in the newspaper where it traced out the part that was used in the things that actuate your seat in a car. And in the wake of the earthquake in East Asia, this thing that was one piece, essentially there was only 2 makers in the world. And I don't think you're going to get that one of those 2 makers to reshore to the U.S. The other piece was to look at, I forget what other part, but it would ship from one place to another place in the U.S., ship across the border to Mexico, ship across the border once again back from Mexico to the U.S., ship to Canada, then finally be shipped to the U.S. And think about it, that tariff, a tariff, is going to be applied at each of those stages, except for the things that are exempt under USMCA, multiple times. So it's not just, hey, something's done here, let's get it back here. It's done here, 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 here. So when Trump says, I'm going to have iPhones made in the U.S., well, think about what's going to be the cost of that iPhone you're going to get that's completely U.S. made. It's going to be extraordinary. The other thing is, yeah, we could probably offshore some production to the U.S., but given rapid productivity growth, it's not clear that you're going to reshore jobs. Okay? So don't equate movement of production with movement of jobs.
Well, explain that, though. Why?
Well, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you might use 3 people to do something, or if it's done in India, maybe it's 5 people to do something. But you can't use those technologies here, or you could, but they wouldn't be cost effective. And so you're going to do what? You're going to, because labor is relatively expensive here, that's why it was outsourced to begin with, you're going to automate it to make it as cost effective as you can. And so you have one person. I mean, go to a typical factory these days, how many people are on the floors? I mean, depending upon what kind of factory, there are not many, because you've automated so much of the production. That's why productivity growth is fast.
And knowing you were going to be on the panel, I decided to pull up some economic numbers. I think employment in measuring it, certainly in manufacturing, is a terrible measure of economic activity, because employment has actually gone down in the past few decades. And what's happened is output in real dollars has increased by 25% since 1975. So it's a case of where we're going to keep manufacturing. We're still the number 2 manufacturer in the world. It's just not going to take a lot of people.
Okay, so now I'm going to turn things over to Tom Still, president of the Wisconsin Technology Council, who's going to ask some questions and then get some questions from the audience. So, Tom?
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
Take over.
Well, all right. Great panel. Thanks to all of you for being here. I want to stick on onshoring for a second. Something that was in the news a lot recently was the raid by the Immigration and Customs Enforcement in a Hyundai plant near Savannah, Georgia. Rounded up a bunch of people there. Some had documents, some didn't. But the point was, to me, that was this a clash of policies? The administration said it wanted to, it wants to onshoring, but at the same time, the immigration policies came into effect. So your thoughts on that?
Wow. Nothing like a light question, Tom.
I just thought I'd start off big, Buckley. I knew you could handle it.
So I think one of the things that's of most concern to me right now is the inconsistent approaches to what the administration says that they want to accomplish. Mm-hmm. So if we're talking about immigration and we're talking about closing the borders, which was a good idea. You can't have just open borders.
Right.
Then how does that ripple through the rest of the economy? Because that was the only area of growth in our workforce, mm-hmm. and the growth of GDP is the growth of the workforce plus the growth of productivity. And now that positive number that's been growing at 5% is now negative. And so how does that affect us long term? And so something like what happened at the Hyundai plant just sends a signal that we're not going to be very good partners, and it's a disjointed approach to bringing a comprehensive picture together of what you want to have happen with economic growth. I mean, it's a difficult environment to deal with, and it's been really frustrating just trying to figure out logically how the pieces connect.
Mm-hmm. Good. Menzie, your thoughts, or Pam?
Yeah, no, exact agreement, completely. I'm not sure it was a clash of policies, or they just, one hand doesn't know what the other hand is. You know, in any policy outcome, you can either equate it with actual intent or incompetence. And so I think that two hands were doing two separate things. For sure, the Trump administration is always touting the ability to bring in investments of undefined nature. But here was a real case of foreign direct investment in the United States. And, you know, you might say, well, what's so important about foreign direct investment? Well, they're building a plant, bringing in people, and one of the important things that everybody wants FDI for is technology transfer. What kind of plant was it? I think it was a chip plant. So we valued this chip plant because it was bringing in technology transfer, which is not just like a block of technology, it's what people know how to do. So if I think about long-term damage, I think it's not a business cycle thing, but it is something that's chilling, because nobody is going to want to build a new plant now in the United States without some assurance that the workers that they have employed there, and workers always come with FDI, are not going to be rounded up, shackled, and sent back home.
Sure. Now, Hyundai is still going to invest something like $26 billion over the next 3 or 4 years. I forgot how long. And by the way, chips, that's one of the things that this administration and business everywhere in this country want to promote, bringing back the chips in the United States. Roberta or Pam, or I know you're going to talk about different things, but...
Well, no.
Yeah.
I mean, chips, we'll use them. But
in those new tractors.
That's right. That's right. When your reference on immigration, is there anybody in this room that really doesn't think agriculture revolves around our immigrant labor? I don't care what facet. Mm-hmm. And you can bicker about percentages, but the way that I see Wisconsin agriculture in general, that is one of the big pieces that keep people up at night. Mm-hmm. When you don't know if your employees are going to show up to milk cows, mm-hmm. that'll keep you up.
That'll keep you up.
When you have an uncertainty on, I'll give you an example. We just did a story about a cheese manufacturer in Monroe that changed ownership. When the new owners came in, they decided that they wanted to have the opportunity to sell what we call commodity cheese. So when I do prices, I do barrel and block cheese prices. That's commodity prices. It can go into the government warehouse. It can go into the schools. It's commodity. Well, this new cheese ownership wanted to be able to have that opportunity. So they said every employee had to be e-verified, and the workers went on strike because that wasn't the deal we came to.
Yeah.
Don't know what the percentage was of those that could have done it or couldn't have done it. I don't want to get into that. Yeah. But the bottom line was, to get that government opportunity, e-verification became a part of the conversation, and the employees walked. In agriculture, we still rely a lot, despite all our technology, we still have to have people. Animals have to be fed. Crops have to, despite autonomous tractors, there's still got to be a person there. And like I said, we are incredibly reliant. And we were told, I'm saying we as in agriculture, we're told we will not hurt our farmers. We will not hurt our farmers. But like I said, there are those instances where you pucker.
Yeah, it can and does hurt. Let me quickly go to Robbie for a question. I'm hearing there's a slowdown in the trucking industry in large, just because what's going on and not coming in to ports. Maybe Buckley, you know too. And then I want to hear from you on your questions. I saw one hand over here. Yeah, okay. We'll be right back to you. Okay.
Well, so looking at what we're seeing in stuff for supply chain, we really haven't seen too many issues with the trucking industry. Actually, our supply chain has been going much faster and quicker than it was in the past. So fortunately, we haven't been impacted.
Okay. Buckley?
The impact has been around the tariffs and the uncertainty, and now the complication the real critical nature of having the right code, using the right code to get the right tariff on the right material. And I was traveling with a manufacturer a couple weeks ago who just imported a $700,000 piece of equipment, and one of the things they were asked at the tariff gate was, how much does each metal used in this piece of equipment weigh? How do you do that with a $700,000 piece of equipment that's already been made and shipped?
Right.
So just that's one example of the complication going on right now.
That's a good example. Sean?
I've been coming to these luncheons for years, and I've never had a chance to ask the Farm Babe a question, so this is an honor. So, Pam and panel, you mentioned about used equipment. There was a huge story in the New York Times a few weeks ago about John Deere and the impacts that are going to happen to John Deere. My question for the panel, but I'll start with Pam, is you have India, China, and Russia all together talking, whatever they're talking about. There's a lot of bellies to feed that we in agriculture always talk about how the trade market in China, which led to a lot of this trade consternation in the countryside, was permanent normal trade relations with China, NAFTA, all of those things. With tariffs, it's hard to say that they are a one-on-one relationship. What is the kind of impact of soybeans don't get sold to China, Brazil then gets the deal? How does all of the different nations interplay when it comes to tariffs, but specifically with agriculture?
You know, I was thinking about this kind of in that same arena this morning. One thing that I notice about Wisconsin agriculture and agriculture in general, and I'm sure it's in the similar industries, I'm just kind of a homer on this, is we build relationships. Next week, there's going to be a Central America trade delegation in Wisconsin to see how we raise beef. We do it differently than Texas or Montana, and we have a story to tell. We have a Wisconsin Ag Export Initiative that has been in play for a while, just helping with some of these expenses to keep telling our story. Every farmer, I don't know if you realize this, any commodity, if you grow it, you kick in to a checkoff program. Research, education, and promotion, that's usually the mantra for every one of those commodity organizations, and the farmer-driven checkoff. And that builds relationships. When I talk to cheesemakers sell to buyers, they know one another, it's family. When you've built those kinds of relationships, you can withstand some fluctuations in price because everybody around the world's got the same feeling. We'll see where it goes. It could come back. It could change overnight. But the relationships stay. And we are forging more. To your point, we've really had our eye on China for so long. That 1 billion, if we can just help feed 1 billion people. And now India is the moving part. So, like I said, Wisconsin agriculture, Wisconsin agribusiness continues to forge relationships regardless of tariff, regardless of where the tariffs are most heavy. And the other part that I mimic what you said, Buckley, is the story of how what I grew in Wisconsin gets to my end user because it jumps around, like you said. The back door. We'll backdoor it from the Philippines into wherever. Now, like I said, the soybeans haven't found their way specifically next, but I think most of my agricultural friends would say, however it gets there. And we have taken a lower price perspective. For example, dairy. Our dairy exports are up 30%, easy. And some of it is just because we're so price competitive. So price competitive. Would we like to make more? Oh, hell yes. But we are so price competitive globally that even with the tariff, we can keep it moving. So, like I said, agriculture is, as agriculture's always been, heavily invested in relationships.
I'm glad to help fulfill Sean's lifelong ambition of asking the Farm Babe a question.
Usually we're doing this over here, though, Sean.
Oh, okay. All right. Nick Myers, recovery.com.
Howdy. No, thank you all for being here on this topic that has so many different moving parts to it. So I guess my question is, thinking back to this not being our first rodeo, 2017, 2018, when those tariffs were implemented on China that affected commodity prices, I remember it coming out several years later after reports were done that the tariff revenue that was being generated on behalf of those commodities that China was buying less of as a result of the tariff, the government was in effect subsidizing back to farmers to compensate them from the loss from the actual tariff. And there was no net positive gain from that. Tariff in, tariff out. Now, I don't feel like I've seen anything, or I don't recall seeing anything recently about a similar instance happening with this round of tariffs, but has there been any communication sent out by the Department of Ag that that subsidy program is going to be, I guess, enhanced, if it's still in place, put back into place? Is it all smoke and mirrors again like it was the first time around?
You are exactly right, though. My concern is that false sense of security that, oh, they'll do it again. And what gets a little muddy is the pandemic.
Sure.
Because our world fell apart. In agriculture, our world fell apart. And that money seemed to continue to coalesce. It might have started with the tariff side of things, but then the pandemic continued to prop us up and give us a false sense of security. Wow, these commodity prices, yeah, well, these aren't really these commodity prices. It's a situational, opportunity. So I think you're right. There's a lot of, I hear that in my agricultural lobbying circles, they'll do it again. But the farmers aren't buying it. They are not buying it. And to your point, at least as I am aware, we can't get a farm bill done.
Sure.
That's number one priority right now. We're a little concerned about MAHA. That's a domestic boo-boo. So I don't hear anybody with tone on taking what we've got in our pocket now and shelling it out to farmers. I have not heard even a whisper of that yet.
But did that first round of subsidies, would you consider being in farming, was that actually helpful? Like, was there any point to the subsidy other than saying, oh, we're going to, for politics and showboating, say we're putting this tariff in place in China, but we're just going to pay you, like, here under the table?
Well, he needed the farmers, both elections.
Okay.
He needed rural. And first time around, that was the goal with which he got them. Did I see massive Escalades and brand new pickup trucks and all that? No.
Probably not.
No. It may have plugged the holes. And the other thing is, remember, generationally, what year was it when the real estate market hit the skids? And all of a sudden, I see farm kids that were doing brokerage firms, real estate, back home on the farm. God bless them. Great. Love to have you. But we got to have enough income to generate for two families now versus one. And so, like I said, some of that helped to keep the next generation on the farm versus seeking off farm. But to your point, I get that vibe. Well, just wait. They'll do it again.
I might be wrong on this, but as I recall, the funding for farmers was out of the Commodity Credit Corporation. It was essentially a piggy bank. I mean, it's essentially funds that were paid in, and so Trump had ready access to it. I don't know what the stock of funds in CCC is right now, but I think then into any subsidization this time around, they got to get legislation.
Oh, it'll draw so much attention.
Yeah. And on the other point, so we got some tariff revenue from steel and aluminum and some tariff revenue from China, but it's not like, even with these tariffs, we only got like $150 billion so far. So it wasn't very much. And at the same time, we gave $23 billion so we pay higher prices for steel and everything else coming from China. And we subsidize farmers, $23 billion, I believe. And so on net, the country is losing, even if the farmers on net were made whole. So that's my recollection.
Okay, question over here.
Yeah, hi. Great. I'm State Representative Andrew Heisel, and appreciate this presentation very much. I, along with Senator Brad Pfaff, introduced a bill called the Tariff Tax Transparency Act. And so my concern really is on the consumer. We've talked a lot about the businesses, the costs, the potential effects for the businesses. And my concern is really about the consumers. And like, a hidden tax is still a tax. And we're looking at the largest federal tax increase since 1993. Goldman Sachs says the average family by this year alone will incur an extra $2,400 in costs. And Market Watch had this op-ed where they said, when people go in, they were surveying people, they showed them a basket of goods, and they just didn't tell them anything, and they got really mad at the retailer. And then they told them, well, this is partially driven at least by a tariff, and they became less angry at the retailer. And so I'm wondering, what are retailers going to do about this? I know Amazon talked about doing something, and then they said, no, we didn't mean it. But at the end of the day, like, the consumer can only take so much, and this is a really, really big tax.
Absolutely no expertise in retail since I was a assistant buyer at Kohl's in 1982. So, but one of the conversations I was part of this week was a conversation with a large Wisconsin retailer, and they were talking about the impact of tariffs. And one of the things they were talking about is, he called it the dog food bag syndrome. That instead of buying a 75-pound bag of upscale dog food, consumers are now downshifting to a 50-pound bag that's more generic. So I think we're going to see some inflation fighting that way. I can't comment on, I don't have any good knowledge on, what's going to happen with retailers. I do know that we're being saved a little bit by another thing that got developed during the pandemic was the willingness to accept price increases. So that's a lot easier to get through now than it was 8 years ago. So that's one worry for me in terms of inflation. Menzie, you said that they recouped the cost of the increase in materials. Well, manufacturers that I know increased more than it was a real opportunity to improve margins. But that muscle of getting a price increase through really got strengthened during that. So I think that's going to have an inflationary effect, but that's all I can tell you about retail.
Yeah, I don't have much on retail either, but just being a consumer, I'm all about local, so I shop local all the time as much as possible and stuff. But I do wonder, like, I've noticed some of the local shops the prices is going up, and how many, even with an advocate like me going into trying to do local, how long can I do that before I have to go to the big box shops and go and do more low cost, just more cost-effective methods and stuff, and what is that going to have as a bigger impact on our communities and all the entrepreneurs and startups that are out there?
Okay.
Well, I haven't worked in retail for a long time either, but I'll say a lot has got to hinge upon the state of the economy in general. So if labor income is still pretty strongly growing, it's flat now, most recent months in inflation-adjusted terms, but if you had high employment and continued income growth, then the consumer would probably take these hits in terms of prices, and you might have more rapid inflation. Otherwise, they're going to economize, and that's going to put downward pressure on the margins of everybody, all the firms. So it just depends a lot on the state of the economy, and if in point of fact if the economy tips into a slowdown, and not even a recession, slowdown, you probably will see more of a constraint on inflation and, just more economizing on the part of households.
All right. All this great news makes me wonder why the stock market continues on the tear that it's on, but that's an entire different program. We won't do that in here. Leslie.
Hi, Leslie Spencer-Herrera, ARP, Wisconsin. So right there by who I'm representing tells you kind of the state of my question. You're talking very macro, big picture level, wonderful. It's been really informative. But I'm wondering, both as an economist and you with your experience, kind of disaggregating the data, because back to your point, as long as wages keep rising, well, for many retirees in Wisconsin, we're limited to the COLA and Social Security, which we often say isn't truly representative of the rise of inflation. So, number one, and it seems like we're just starting down this path, so I understand that. Are there any forecasts that you can tell? Are there any specific groups you are forecasting for in terms of who will have a greater impact of these on? Because I think a lot of folks already are purchasing things at Walmart and maybe fighting with their dog over the dog food. I don't know. I mean, the level of some folks living straight on Social Security is already so low. So I'm just curious about more disaggregated data. I'm sitting here next to the school board people here in Madison. Youth, is that a group, too, that you look at? Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, we're going to end properly at 1. I want to get it back to Jeff at 12:59, and so he can wrap things up. But your answer is within the next 4 or 5 minutes.
So very quickly, there are numerous studies which tell you that the lower income deciles are going to suffer more from at least the tariffs. Don't know about the slowdown that might occur, but from the tariffs, and you can understand why. What do lower income households consume more of? Goods. And what is being tariffed or taxed? Goods, imported goods. And so the bottom income, like 40%, are going to be disproportionately hit by these tariffs. There's other distributional issues about which industries would be protected and gain and which ones would be hurt. Don't know about that. But that's the case. On the other hand, I think it's the case that the top 10% of income distribution accounts for 25% of consumption. So they can keep the overall economy going, even as a lot of people that you say, like at the median, are not feeling so well.
Okay. Others? Buckley, you're never at a loss for words.
So I'm going to counteract some of this pessimism. I think one of the things that we have what we call the Wisconsin Manufacturing Report every year. We go out and have 20-minute interviews with 400 manufacturers across the state. They are incredibly bullish right now, so much so that I question the data. It's a big jump from last year when everybody was standing around. The thing that they're all saying right now is that we're all ready to go. We are ready to take action. We are ready to see this economy grow. But we just need a little security, a little stability in what's happening so that we really know how to take advantage of the situation the way it is right now. So 1 or 2 adjustments could really see a takeoff, certainly in the manufacturing sector.
Mm-hmm. And as you said at the outset, as long as they're willing to take some lumps as long as China gets theirs. So that's good. Back to Jeff Mayers. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, so Buckley, you sort of eased into the last question here. This is the wrap-up question. So what are your recommendations or hopes? Okay, so this is in the courts. Is your hope that the tariffs are declared, that they go away? Or is it something that, with some adjustments that this could be actually a good thing? So what are your hopes and dreams when it comes to tariff policy in the U.S.? Why don't we, Roberta, you want to weigh in on that?
Sure. I think what we're looking for is more predictability and transparency so that we know, because the changes that keep happening, it impacts pricing and planning, and no one really likes that. So again, if we can just more predictability and transparency so we can plan ahead.
Right, and that's a big task because a lot of these trade pacts are still being negotiated or being revised after being announced. So, I mean, it seems to be a constant struggle in terms of predictability. But you would like predictability. Okay.
I like predictability. Again, it's one of the things. I think that's what we all want, so it's not a really good answer. No. Again,
I said hopes and dreams. So.
Hopes and dreams. You can hope and dream for that. But again, I mean, we mitigate all the risks and stuff, and we're staying ahead of it. So we know how to adjust to it. But perfect world.
Okay, Menzie.
My hope and dream is that the Supreme Court supports the International Trade Court in striking down those tariffs that are imposed under the International Economic Emergencies Act. And that doesn't mean that all the tariffs go away. Section 232 and 301 tariffs, they're still there. Those are not struck down if the Supreme Court supports the appellate court. But that would at least take away a lot of uncertainty. And I think uncertainty is a lot of what's slowing down the economy on top of the higher input costs. There'll still be uncertainty because, there's still policies that kept on being thrown at us, immigration, other trade policies, foreign direct investment snafus like raiding a Hyundai plant. So even with getting rid of those tariffs, we'd still be in, I think, a bad shape. Okay.
Yeah, I would say stability. Just let me know what we're doing. I think, to be honest, some of the damage has already been done. You can retract the tariffs, put a sunshine face on everything. The damage has been done. And, I started at the outset with soybeans in China. Well, everything can change overnight with the sign of a pen. That doesn't mean it's going to change. The damage has been done in many regards as far as the agricultural commodities, and you can't create new resources, so fertilizer is still going to stay right where it is pretty much. So like I said, stability. Just explain, let me know where it stands, especially in agriculture where we are on the clock all the time. So stability for sure.
I'm going to dream a little bigger. I'm going to dream that the three branches of government all start to do their job the way they were intended to do them, so that we don't have people constantly crossing the lines on what the original founders intended, and that will end up with better policies, better ideas, and more stability overall. And the second thing I'm dreaming about, and I think is coming about, is that people realize just the critical importance of manufacturing to the base of the economy, so that we can innovate, so that we can make things, and so that we can build prosperity for everybody in the economy.
I think America the Beautiful should be playing during your statement. All right. So thanks to the Wisconsin Technology Council, Xcel Energy, HB Strategies, American Family Insurance, Wisconsin Insurance Alliance, ARP Wisconsin, Walmart, WC Energy Group, and our all-star panel. Thank you.
As the state's leading property and casualty insurance trade association, the Wisconsin Insurance Alliance plays a crucial role in safeguarding Wisconsinites. Alliance members provide vital insurance coverage, ensuring financial protection for individuals, businesses, and communities across the state. In times of need, they act as a reliable resource, helping residents recover from unforeseen events. Ultimately, the Wisconsin Insurance Alliance and its members contribute to the resilience and well-being of Wisconsin families and businesses by offering essential protection and support. You have been watching a production of Wisconsin Eye, your unfiltered window into legislative deliberations and public policy programming, where our mission is to provide Wisconsinites an opportunity to access the legislative process and connect with conversations that inform our citizenry. Please consider supporting our mission, and thank you for watching. Wisconsin Eye, policy made public.